you put a roof on, and you probably need to do things to maintain it. You're definitely going to need to replace it at some point, and it just needs to be baked into your expectations. Otherwise, you end up with a house that is falling apart because this thing was not taken care of. So then water starts getting in and wood starts, and it turns from it was a house, but now it just needs to be torn down. Anyway, what was my point with that? So this is going to be the case in your business as well. You need to expect that. The key is to put yourself in the best position possible to have the least amount of upkeep possible, knowing there will be some level of upkeep always. That's going to be the case. Now, with that said, here's how I think about this. So first off, we get immediate wins by if a task needs to be done continually, building the SOP is going to save your time in having to explain it over and over again over the next few weeks. Welcome back to Real Estate Growth Hackers. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how you can build a business that you actually love, that you could wrangle, that you get your time back, that you could make it the business that you enjoy working. Charlie, who I have here with me. Charlie, I know one of the things that you say is how to have a career that you never want to quit. And we build a lot of strategies around this, a lot of concepts. Today, we're really going to be diving into that around the key pivotal tool that helps you achieve that. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Again, Charlie Madison here with me, founder, creator, developer, realtor, referrals while you sleep, and realtor waiting list. Not wearing a Hawaiian shirt today. What is that? That looks like it's a soccer shirt, maybe?
Yeah, we got a nice little soccer jersey on today.
There we go. Nice. I am wearing my standard black shirt because I do the whole Steve Jobs thing. I basically have a bunch of the same shirt because I don't like thinking about clothes.
It is much easier that way.
Indeed. Cool. So yeah, let's dive into this. So what are we talking about? We're talking about this concept that businesses fairly naturally increase in complexity, increase in difficulty. They start to get out of control where you know what you like, what's worked for you. But here's the reality. A business that actually is big enough to help you achieve your goals and really get you the life that you wanted when you set out to build the business, it always comes back to who, not how. That's a great book by Dan Sullivan
and Ben Hardy.
And Ben Hardy, exactly. And really, so the premise of the book is that the reality is the goals that you want to achieve. If you want to go slow, you ask how. If you want to go fast, you ask who. And you want to find the right who's to where their superpower is essentially the thing that you need to achieve. But part of that process is always going to be equipping people, right? With equipping people with the understanding that you have, equipping people with the tools and tactics that they need to succeed. And foundationally for your business is only a business if it has processes, right? If it has things that people can repeatedly do. Otherwise, I don't even know what to call it. What is a business without processes? It's just a job, right?
Like, yeah, I mean, you're a 1099 freelancer, right?
Exactly. And turning your business from something that's stuck in your head into something that can be run by other people and thus get you your time back, get you freedom while still being able to achieve your financial goals and do all of that kind of stuff. It requires processes. Now, depending on the kind of business that you're running, those processes may be more or less extensive, right? The complexity of your business dictates how many of these processes you need and maybe the kind of people that you need to run them. But ultimately, it does always come back to processes. And one of the things that I've found is this is easier said than done. If that makes sense. We know it's necessary. We know that it's powerful a lot of the time, but most people don't actually spend the time to sit down and put together these processes. Is that something that you've seen, Charlie?
Yeah, I know for me, in the past, I've spent the time, and my question is, how do I hit the balance of not so precise that there's no room for human involvement, to it's so lax that you don't get the results, combined with how much on the other part of the spectrum, how much time does it take me and how often does it change? Those are kind of the four things that I run into when thinking about this. And then after it changes the sixth time, throw my hands up and be like, this isn't worth 3 more hours.
Indeed. So that's the reality of it, is that some of these processes, they really will. They'll change and adapt often. So you want your system to be set up in a way that is robust and easy to adapt, that you can update these things over time, because the reality is our world is constantly changing. The best practices at any given point will be changing and evolving. But the good news is there's a lot that doesn't change. There's a lot of things that always stay the same. Like chances are, we talked about this before, I look at a real estate business as really any business, but fitting in at this point, I look at 4 different buckets. So there's create business. Those are all the processes that you do that create the opportunities for you to have clients to serve. That leads to the second bucket, which is service business. So those are all the processes that actually are about delivering on the promises that you've made to customers. And then the third bucket is manage business. And really, that's a big bucket of all the things that keep the business running. It's filing your taxes. It's taking care of payroll. It's literally the act of taking care of payroll, not just necessarily having the money to take care of payroll, but like, where does it get paid? When does it get paid? What software is used? Anyway, so those are the manage business type tasks. And then the fourth one is improve business. So that's all of the things that you do, hopefully systematically, to consistently grow your awareness, grow your skill set, and work on those other 3 buckets of create business, service business, and manage business. And when we're looking at your business, your processes fit in there somewhere. You have things that hopefully you're doing that are designed to generate awareness, to generate, awareness in the marketplace, so that you're turning people who don't know you into people that do know you, right? There's some system and process to do that in order to ultimately grow your overall addressable market. And then you have the processes to take the people who now know you and turn them into people that either you could communicate with consistently, ultimately lead toward sales conversations, those sorts of things, etc. When I look at what are the processes that you want to define, those are some of the most important ones. The ones that are tested and proven, where this is how our business right now consistently gets these things done, generates business. Similarly, for like service business, this is what level of service we expect to provide when we get a client. This is how we handle these situations. Those to me are some of the most important ones to document, because they're ultimately what creates your revenue and what creates your opportunities to be in business. Does that make sense?
Right. It does.
Yeah, so on that level, I know when we're talking about what things to create these systems around and these processes, I know for you, you have like a referral system, if I recall, right? So you have a very specific way where repeatable actions that you will take in order to get an inbound referral. Like you have a process for that. Can you just describe that at a high level? So when people are hearing processes, one of the aspects of what I'm describing there?
Yeah, so an inbound referral, what I found works, and the background in real estate, let's just use that.
Right.
Someone would give my card away and I'd never hear from them, or they would tell them to call me, or they would tell me to call them. And what I found out through trial and error is the person that wants to connect us, I say, hey, send me and them a group text message as an introduction.
Right.
And then my next step is, hey, great to meet you. Do you have a couple minutes today to chat? And I chat with them. And it almost doesn't matter what they say. My next suggestion is, let's schedule 25 minutes on my calendar to dive deeper. And then my next step is to have an hour-long conversation. And then I usually connect them to my lender. So that's my step-by-step process there.
Exactly. And so like for each of those things, honestly, sometimes that's even just the level that you need to document it, right? Literally saying, this common thing that happens in my business, what's my strategy? What's my plan? What are the daily activities that me or somebody on my team take in order to create opportunities to be employed? Because that's what you do in real estate. Every day you are unemployed, you have to go out and find a job. And so you got to teach your agents that process for what is your strategy, because there's tons, right? We've talked about a lot. I've talked about the 4 agent archetypes and how you're either a prospector, networker, converter, or marketer, and probably all of them, but maybe leaning toward one over another. And there's strategies in all of them that are slightly different, and all of them work, right? It's really just a question of what you want to go after. But you want to define what is a system that's worked for you, what are the systems that potentially help your agents, that sort of idea. You want to have like, what does your standard sales process look like, right? Is it call to set up the appointment, leads to a calendar link, leads to Zoom or in person? Do you have a preference? You want to make those high level decisions in order to at least have systems for all of these concepts. But sometimes there are aspects in your business that really, in order to run them, they take clearer documentation, right? And
Right.
typically for me, the way that I'm finding those kinds of processes are this needs to be done every week. This needs to be done every day. This needs to be done every X period of time. It's very typically done in the same way. I just need a process that literally shows somebody how to do this, where to click, all of that kind of thing. And I will expect over time, if I change systems, I'll need to update what that looks like, but it'll largely be the same. And so examples of those kinds of things for me, my assistant runs a process for me where she takes old videos, not just old, but she takes videos that I've done in the past of recordings for my book club or webinars or even calls like this, and then runs them through a process to create derivative content to help with our marketing. And so she's creating clips. In the long run, she'll be helping to create other types of social posts as well, blog posts, emails, that kind of thing. And we have a specific plan of action where this thing, so say it's the book club, this book club creates an asset that then needs to go through this refining process, and this is what that refining process looks like. Then it needs to be uploaded to our distribution platform, which for us is Cloud Campaign, and we set that up in a specific way so that it's ultimately distributed, right? So we have a flow from raw asset to it's creating our marketing materials. And that process is run pretty consistently week over week. We've created a process to turn raw assets into marketing. But it takes understanding what buttons are you clicking in Cloud Campaign? What do those things look like? We have to have that level of documentation in order to make that clear. Does that make sense? Where I start to look for, where are the key places where I really need this detailed step-by-step?
Yeah. Step-by-step stuff where it's not as fungible, especially when you're working with machines, like point, click, type, point, click, type, that type of stuff.
Exactly. And so really, I have found over time that these SOPs somewhat reveal themselves. That's part of what's nice about doing this process is that you could show up as you are. And here's the thing that I look for when I'm trying to figure out where do I need an SOP on this? Or what does the SOP need to look like and all that kind of thing. I think, am I going to have to answer this question again next week? Because if I am, that's a pretty clear indication that it's something that's repeatedly happening in my business, or it's something that should be repeatedly happening. And so it's better for me to take care of it now rather than later in order to make sure that I am buying myself time in the near future by not having to go over that information over and over again. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And you mentioned actually before we started recording, there's a really great example from Ender's Game. I'm remembering the guy's name. His name's Bonzo. Or Bonzo. I forget if it's pronounced Bon or Bone, but it sounds Bozo. But
It does.
Anyway, go ahead and recount the story for me and how it relates to this.
Yeah, and our friend Richard mentioned this to me, and I loved it. He was talking about actually how he's building some SOP systems. And
Right.
in the movie, Ender is being bullied by this guy.
Right.
And Ender just whips him
Right.
up and down. I don't remember if he murdered him or not, but it was close.
He didn't intend to. It is later revealed that the kid did die, but his intention wasn't specifically mentally thinking, I'm going to murder this guy, but it did end up resulting in his death. But anyway.
Yeah. But his quote was, I wasn't trying to win this fight. I was trying to win all of the fights. And I think that's just a great description of a SOP. You know, like my goal is not to just solve this task today or put out this fire today. My goal is to solve all the tasks, all the fires in this forever.
Exactly. And that's so key. So when we think through, how do we do that? How do we build an SOP in order to solve all the future problems? And keep in mind, our world is always prey to entropy. Things will require upkeep. It's worthwhile to understand that. Honestly, I'm not proud to admit how long it took me to realize the level of upkeep that a house needs just to stay in the same state, right? Where we're not talking, for some reason in my mind, I was like, the ideal is that you build it in the right way and then you never have to do anything to it again. No, you put a roof on and you probably need to do things to maintain it. You're definitely going to need to replace it at some point, and it just needs to be baked into your expectations. Otherwise, you end up with a house that is falling apart because this thing was not taken care of. So then water starts getting in and wood starts rotting, and it turns from it was a house, but now it just needs to be torn down. Anyway, what was my point with that? So this is going to be the case in your business as well. You need to expect that. The key is to put yourself in the best position possible to have the least amount of upkeep possible, knowing there will be some level of upkeep always. That's going to be the case. Now, with that said, here's how I think about this. So first off, we get immediate wins by if a task needs to be done continually, building the SOP is going to save your time in having to explain it over and over again over the next few weeks, because that's what would happen if you don't document a process clearly or well. So in the immediate, you're going to get some immediate time savings just by documenting it now. So that to me is like that immediate gratification, when delayed gratification is what we almost feel like we need to pay attention to more. The longer term thing that we want to build for as well is understanding not only are your processes going to potentially change, but I don't know about you, Charlie. Do you have anybody that you are working with today? Let me put it this way. In the past 10 years of your life and business, how many people are you still working with today compared to the total number of people that you've worked with over the past 10 years? In terms of like people on your team, people on staff, even maybe so much as like freelancers that you work with consistently. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I've got a few that have been around for close to 10 years. I can think of the 2 transaction coordinators. The one, I don't work with her directly, but her team member. And then my showing agent, we've worked together for 5 years. But there's not many people. I've got some clients that I've worked on and off with.
Right.
But what's fascinating is each time, too, like the market's been different. So my strategy has been upgraded or changed each time.
Yeah, and for me, when I look at people who are on my team, have been on my team, I tend to work with people for a fairly long time. I don't churn through people super easy, but man, 10 years in business is actually a fair stretch. I got one person that I could think of that I still work with today that I can think of starting working with them back to the beginning, back to 10 years ago, in terms of somebody that I work with more in staff level. But I've worked with a lot of different people. Right? So here's the reality of that. Even if you are the most perfect, ideal employer, you're the perfect team that agents love staying with you, and you don't have a high churn rate for the industry, even if you are set up really well, you are going to have people move through your organization because nobody stays forever. The number of people that stay forever are so rare that you can't build businesses around them. That's at least been my experience. Is that yours?
I heard the best quote last week when I went to Mastermind with a company. They hire VAs for people, and they've placed like over 6,000. Their C-suite was there, really cool, here in Nashville. And their sales manager said something that stopped me in my tracks with this. Because one person was saying, man, I just suck at hiring. And the guy said, hey, we all suck at hiring. We have to get good at firing. And fireworks going off because you don't know how someone works until you get them in the position. And then you don't know what happens with their life, and their stuff changes for them. And that's just the reality. People move through. And they even talked about, because they've grown really rapidly over the last 4 years. They're like at $3 million a year now. And they've talked to people and said, whoever helps you at 100, it's ones and threes. Whoever helps you at 100,000, then you go to 300,000, then $1 million, then 3 million, 10 million. The story is most people will not make it past 2 jumps. Exceptional will make it 3, but that's really tapped out. The majority of people with you now will not make it more than 2 jumps if you're growing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the reality is that's the future that we are also preparing for when we're building out SOPs. We're saying, I am expecting that my employees, my team, the agents that I work with, that they will shift and change over time. So I need to build a business that can be stronger and outlast any one particular person. Right? So really anything that you're doing repeatedly, that matters way more for, especially. So part of what you're building for is you're building to say, how can I make it so that when transition has to happen, that it goes as smoothly, quickly, and effectively as possible. And so your SOPs that you build out will help with that. They'll help to make sure that somebody new coming in has clear documentation to explain how to do a process so that they could jump in and have what they need to get successful quickly without it hopefully taking much of your time to do. So that's really one of the keys. So we get immediate wins over the course of the next few weeks of not having to explain it over and over again as somebody's learning the process initially. But even after that, we get those longer term wins of being able to bring in new team members, bring in new people into our world, and not have to explain from scratch to somebody brand new because we've already got it documented. Those are really, to me, some of the big reasons, because those are those time sucks that when you look through your days, when you look through your weeks, those are like the hidden things. You're not typically planning what I need to do to be productive today is go through and train this brand new person again on something that I've already done. Those are the things where it's the unexpected costs, and they start to add up over time, and they start to be the thing that's preventing you from scaling, that's preventing you from getting where you want to go, because it's another thing that you have to accomplish that isn't moving you forward. It's just keeping you in stasis. So I can't remember. I feel like I've done maybe an episode on what all goes into a good SOP, but I'll go over that real quick right now in terms of how I think through building these out to be long-term successful. The easiest thing to do to start, and I do recommend that people start with this, is literally use something like Loom. I actually use a tool called Descript that has some AI built in that does some really cool things, but whatever you use is fine. You want something that allows you to record your screen typically, because that's very often where you're showing processes happening. Even if you're not needing to show your screen, tools that let you show your screen allow you to do your camera as well. But you want to record yourself talking through a process, talking through how to do something. And really what's most important is the easier it is for you to get a transcript, the better, because of what I'm going to share in a second of what that transcript lets you do. But when you're selecting tools, that's what I'd say. So Loom is one of my favorite. Descript is the one that I actually personally use. But you want to cover a few things in talking through the video. So one of the things that people miss is talking about the purpose, the why of the task. Where does it fit in the bigger structure of your business? You don't need to go down to the actual absolute foundations, but you want to give somebody an idea of this process is part of a bigger process that helps us to create opportunities for our sales. And this is a piece in that bigger process. You want to at least give some level of explanation, and especially if you can, you want to give some of the why. You want to say, why does it matter? Why does it need to be done in our business? What is it going to do this process? Because when you give people that why understanding along the way, like we mentioned, these processes change over time. But if they understand where it fits in the overall process, if the tool stops working, if something goes out of whack, they have more clarity on, I understand why I was doing this. Maybe they go and find a replacement tool for you because they understand what it needs to accomplish. Maybe if the layout of Facebook, for instance, changes like it does every 5
week.
seconds. Yeah, exactly. Then they still know when I'm doing this setting, I know why I'm doing it. So I can make a decision about either what to ask about or what to recommend based on what I'm seeing in front of me now that it's changed. So giving those whys for the overall task as well as any individual step is really important. The other thing that matters is any prerequisites. So as you're going through and explaining a task, I typically, if I notice like we're logging into this site, so you'll need the login for this site in order to run this task. Or we're using this asset, so you'll need this asset before you could run this task. And I'll say that out loud so that it's clearly documented in the transcript in order to prepare for some future things. So things like that. And then otherwise, you're literally just walking through the step-by-step process typically. So you're just saying, here's what you're doing. You start here, you do this, you click there. When possible, for sake of the transcript, you want to give very visually descriptive language if possible. So not just you click here, but you say you click the red button up in the top right so that there's more clarity in your words, and that'll show up in your transcript. And there's a reason why we actually do the video. So the video is, we do it for a couple of reasons. One, it's one of the easiest ways to create. Just literally live flowing through a process makes it easy for you to get that out of your brain and into something that somebody else could go through. So you accomplish that first step first of getting it off your plate just with the video. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But videos have problems. One of the biggest problems is that they're really hard to update. Updating a video can be difficult. A tool like Descript actually makes that a little bit easier because you could splice things in and maybe just re-record part of it. But even with that, it's still pretty hard. So really our big goal from the video is that we just want to give somebody a high-level idea of what the task is about in general so that they understand the why, they understand the overall idea of how to do it. But really we're looking to generate written instructions. And a video right now in this AI world is one of the quickest ways to get to the written instructions. Because the written instructions are really what you need if you want somebody to actually reference it and go through it quickly while they're doing the work. Have you ever tried to implement a process off of a video, Charlie? Like off of a video alone? Yeah, like I have. It's painful. It takes 10 times as long as it would to do it off of a written guide because what it looks like is that you have to, like, you're like, I know this was covered. I remember hearing it covered. Let me try and scroll to the place where I feel like it was covered. It's around there. Okay, let me listen. No, that's too late. I needed it earlier. They covered this earlier, I think. So you click earlier and you listen for a bit. Is that the right spot? I think it's coming up. I feel like it's coming up, but I don't really remember. Anyway, that's the process, right? The process is painful just to even try and get the answer to your question. So videos aren't good when you actually need to go through and do the task. What you want is you want a written process, because a written process, you could scan, you could say, it's covered right there. There's the template. There's the name of the thing I'm supposed to click, right? You could scan and quickly reference something as you're going through it and go back and forth between doing the work and referencing the training. Does that make sense in terms of, like, videos are good for understanding the high level, but when you actually need to do the work, they suck. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's what Mike Michalowicz, he talks about in his book Clockwork. You do a video because just the text does not explain it as well as someone seeing you. But then you write it down because once they know it, they need it written down as the memory jogger so they can quickly scan it without having to watch the 10, 12-minute video every time, 5-minute video every time.
Exactly. And so the other thing that's really nice is that once you have a written version, and for me, written tends to also include screenshots if possible, so that you do have a little bit of a visual reference right in line where you can. But the other benefit of written is that written is a lot easier to update. If you're doing a different system, a different tool, or if the button itself changed, but the process hasn't changed, you could take a quick screenshot of the new button, upload that new image, and it's good to go. So it's easier to update a written process than it is to re-record the whole video as only small pieces of it changed. Now, if it changes enough, if you go to a completely new system, you probably need to take the time to just go through and do a new video. But what's cool is this is what I've started to do. When you develop a clear enough process for this, to really make this easy, you start to actually have the person whose work it is to do the process also does the new video. That person gets empowered to be able to say, they're doing the process. They know how to do it. It's not hard to train somebody on how to teach a process. So you take them through that process and have them actually recreate those videos for you moving forward because they have enough of an understanding through the training that you have, and they're probably with you through the transition too, so they can actually create the new training for you. But anyway, those are the things. And the other thing that I include in the actual documentation, these are natural outcomes of doing a video like that, which is the time expected to complete the task, right? So somebody knows, am I way off for how long it took me to complete this task, or am I in line, and how do I fit this into my workday and all of that? And then what a successful outcome looks like. So we gave them the purpose, we gave them prerequisites, we're giving them the step-by-step, but we need them to know what does success look like. You'll know that you did this right when you've got this asset and it has these things accomplished. Because that's like that final quick check to say, did I miss something? Did I do everything? And if you have all those things, are like, that's a well-dialed SOP, right? Now, getting that done, writing that out from a video is a lot of work. But luckily, AI has made this all really easy in terms of actually turning a video like that into an SOP. Actually, I have developed a prompt specifically around that. It's something currently I actually give away for free in the vault. If that's something that you want access to, you can go to realestategrowthhackers.com/the vault and sign up to get access to that SOP as well as some others. And again, I don't know if I'm actually, like, I'm literally in the process right now of potentially restructuring some of how I'm thinking about this aspect of my business. So I don't know how long that's going to be around. By the time you watch this, it may or may not be around. I'm sure the information's available, but you may not be able to get to it for free. But right now, realestategrowthhackers/the vault, realestategrowthhackers.com/the vault. You can get in and get free access, including that prompt, where what you do is you take the transcript from your video, use it with that prompt, and then you throw that into something like ChatGPT or Claude, and it'll give you back like a perfectly structured SOP that's designed to have that written asset from that video. That's really how I like to make that easy. But either way, regardless, knowing what processes need to be documented, what level of documentation is really required, knowing how to do those videos, knowing what a good SOP looks like, and then making that easy to turn that video into an SOP, to me is the key there. So there we go. We talked about how to systemize your business, I think at a pretty good high level. Was there anything that I mentioned in there that you think is confusing or you think people might need clarification on, Charlie?
One thing that occurred to me, I'm a big fan of the Colby assessment.
Right.
And the blue line talks about people that are very systemized, have a huge follow through, and then people that are not systemized that don't have much follow through. And I don't have much follow through. My superpower is I break things, and every time I do it the same way, or every time I do it a different way. A lot of times before AI, if you had someone that was going to systemize it, I would either have to force myself to do it the same way over and over, or I would have to give it to someone, because there's some people, if you throw a bunch of stuff on their desk, within 30 minutes, it's going to be perfectly organized and systemized. And so if you're that person that feels like I felt broken, like I've read the business books, I know I need systems, but that's not where my superpowers are. And what's cool about this process that you've got, I can do a video and I can get ChatGPT to outline it. And then you could probably, it'd be fun to actually say, act like someone that's really high on follow through on the Colby and help me systemize my business. That could probably really help.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm the same way. So my follow through on Colby is also super low. I'm very similar in that I could come up with systems really well. I could come up with concepts for how you would do things, and I could think through, here's a way to systemize this. But what I really suck at is actually being the one to run that system. I suck at being the one to do that. And I think that's part of the power of AI at this point, is likely you could leverage showing up the way that already works for you. We mentioned the idea of recording a video, but often for me, you want to know something? I'm not recording a video by like sitting down and recording a video. What I'm doing is I'm turning on the record function while I'm in the middle of a meeting showing somebody how to do something, and I'm just thinking through it live. So I just get to show up the way that I naturally show up, but I do know to try and answer some of these questions while I'm doing that. So I'm training a person live, and then that person can then take it, throw it through AI, get the process, get it documented, get it most of the way there. And then often I have them do the next step of doing the clean version, where it's my version is, I think, click here, then here, maybe, no, it's over there. Oh, wait, yeah, there we go. It's right there. You get that sort of live conversation when I'm doing that training live. They take that and they actually flow it through that nice, clean flow where, okay, you want to do this, here's the step in order to do it. And it allows me to show up as I am, and it enable and equip somebody on my team to actually take it the rest of the way. Like, I know what needs to accomplish, I know why it matters, and I know I could think through maybe how often it needs to happen, but I could get out of my brain what's needed to actually create the documentation and have somebody else create it, get it updated, all of that. Yeah, that's really the power of AI with this stuff, and really that's the hope of this. Is we started by talking about like how you build a business that you can tame and wrangle to get control of. And the secret to that is really building these processes. And if up till now you've felt like, how can I ever make that happen? It takes too much time. It takes too much effort. It's not my skill set. AI is making it these days that you could show up and that process becomes a lot easier. So you get the benefit of those systematic processes by showing up in whatever way works for you and figuring out how to connect that through to the end result, whether it's getting the right people on your team, whether it's leveraging AI with the right people, or any of those sorts of concepts. You can leverage it to ultimately end up with a business that is bigger than you, a business that is not requiring your time to make everything function, but you put in the investment up front to win all the battles in the future, right? That's our goal. That's what we're looking to do, to get you back that time, get you back the freedom, and really allow you to focus on those things where you are going to move the needle, where you're going to push things forward rather than just maintaining the status quo. And yeah, so there you go. That's what we got today. Again, if you want access to that SOP prompt, right now, the best way to get it is realestategrowthhackers.com/thevault. Again, I don't know how long that's going to be up. So if you want it, feel free, go and get it. It's free as of the recording of this episode. If you go there and it's not available, there's probably some form or something, some way for you to reach out and get in contact with us and find out what the current status is. realestategrowthhackers.com/contact. You could always reach out to us there as well to find out whatever the current offering or the best way to get access to that sort of information is. But anyway, Charlie, again, thank you so much for coming and showing us your perspective as well in SOPs and how we can systemize our business. Until next time, everyone, this has been the Real Estate Growth Hackers Show, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Growth Hackers Show. Remember, done is better than perfect. To turn the marketing ideas and tactics you just learned into real growth for your real estate business, visit us at realestategrowthhackers.com. If you like this episode, consider sharing it with another real estate professional who could benefit from the information, or maybe you'd like to subscribe to the show to never miss an episode. You can leave a rating or review on iTunes with your biggest takeaway, helping this show to reach and help more people just like you. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.